Chopper video shows sparks fly as he runs over deputy-deployed spike strips. His SUV goes off the road, flipping over. A drone catching the moments SWAT closes in, finding Samuel Vaia with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He died at an area hospital. But just 1 week prior, Samuel Vaia was arrested and charged with domestic violence battery against Ashley, a loaded handgun tucked into his waistband at the time of his arrest.
Is there one in the chamber?
Yes. Samuel Vaia bailed out a day later. Conditions of his release included no contact with Ashley Vaia, and he couldn't be in possession of any firearms.
1 week. Girl, 1 week. That's all it took from the moment Samuel Vaia walked out of jail to the moment Ashley Vaia's daughter was on the phone with 911, trapped in her bedroom, listening to her mother being murdered down the hall. 7 days. Let me tell you something. This case is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about protection orders. When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury, the victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Ashley Vaia was 38 years old, living in Deltona, Florida, mother of 3. One of her daughters was 19, still living at home on Palmer Drive. Ashley wasn't new to struggle. She'd been married to Samuel Vaia Jr., and like a lot of relationships, things didn't work out. They separated, they divorced, and girl, that's when things started going left. Samuel was 33, her ex-husband. And if you know anything about domestic violence statistics, you know that the most dangerous time for a woman isn't when she's in the relationship. It's when she's trying to leave it. Post-separation, post-divorce, that's when the risk goes up, way up. Dr. J.T. Lacey, a licensed psychotherapist, broke it down real simple. Approximately 1 in 3 female homicide victims are killed by intimate partners, 1 in 3. Let that sit with you for a second. Now, Samuel and Ashley's relationship had clearly turned toxic. We don't know all the details of their marriage, what led to the divorce, or how long they'd been separated. What we do know is that by March of 2025, things had escalated to the point where Ashley was scared. Not just uncomfortable, not just annoyed. Scared. March 23rd, 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, let me ask you something. What kind of man shows up at his ex-wife's house at 1 in the morning? Samuel Vaia did exactly that. And he didn't come to talk. He came with accusations, cheating allegations. He wanted to confront Ashley, and he wasn't taking no for an answer. Ashley's home on Palmer Drive became a scene that night. The situation got physical. During the struggle, Ashley felt something in Samuel's waistband. She knew what it was. A handgun. Not just any handgun, a loaded handgun. This man came to her house in the middle of the night, armed and angry. Make it make sense. Deputies were called. They arrived and found Samuel, not at Ashley's house, but a few doors down at his father's place. Body camera footage caught the whole arrest. One of the deputies approached him.
Well then, I'm gonna have you just put your hands behind your back, okay?
Samuel asked why. The deputy didn't hesitate. Because you've got enough on you to take you for DV battery. Domestic violence battery. That's what they arrested him for. And when they searched him, they found exactly what Ashley said would be there. That loaded gun tucked in his waistband. Now here's where it gets real. Samuel Vaia was arrested, taken into custody, and charged with domestic violence battery involving a weapon. A weapon, y'all. This wasn't just a shoving match. This wasn't just words. This man had a gun on him when he showed up at his ex-wife's house at 1 in the morning. Any reasonable person would think, okay, he's getting locked up. Ashley's safe now. But here's the thing about the criminal justice system. It don't always work the way you think it should. March 24th or 25th, Samuel Vaia posted bond, $2,000. Girl, $2,000. That's what it cost for this man to walk back out onto the streets after threatening his ex-wife with a loaded weapon. Period. But the judge wasn't completely reckless. Conditions were set for his release. First, no contact with Ashley Vaia. Stay away from her. Don't call her. Don't text her. Don't drive by her house. Nothing. Second, turn in all firearms. All of them. Every single gun you own, you turn them in. Those were the conditions. Samuel turned in 3 guns on March 25th. 3. Now, I don't know about you, but when a judge says all firearms, that means all firearms. Not some. Not the ones you feel like giving up, all of them. But Samuel kept the rest. And nobody checked. Nobody followed up. Nobody made sure this man who had just been arrested for domestic violence with a weapon actually gave up all his weapons. Ashley had also filed a no-contact order, a protection order, the kind of document that's supposed to keep dangerous people away from the people they've hurt. On paper, Ashley did everything right. She called the police when Samuel showed up. She told them about the gun. She filed the protective order. She cooperated with law enforcement. She tried to use the system the way the system tells you to use it. But moving on to the weekend. Saturday, March 29th. A neighbor named Hector Colon was outside. And who did he see walking around the neighborhood? Samuel Vaia, the same man who was supposed to have no contact with Ashley. The same man who was supposed to stay away. Hector talked to him. They stood there for about 25 to 30 minutes, just talking. Hector would later tell reporters that Samuel didn't look like that type of guy. You know, the type who would do something violent. But he also said something else, something that sticks with you. He said, you could see that something was bothering him though. Something was bothering him. That conversation happened roughly 12 hours before Samuel Vaia would murder Ashley. 12 hours. Think about that. What was going through his mind during those 30 minutes? Had he already decided? Was he saying goodbye to the neighborhood? Or was he still wrestling with whatever darkness was pulling at him? We'll never know. But what we do know is that by the time Monday morning rolled around, Samuel Vaia had made his choice. March 31st, early Monday morning. The sun wasn't even up yet on Palmer Drive. Ashley's 19-year-old daughter was in her room, and then she heard it, screaming, her mother's voice, then glass breaking, loud, sharp, the kind of sound that makes your blood run cold, and then gunshots. The daughter grabbed her phone. Her hands were shaking. She dialed 911, and when that operator picked up, you could hear the terror in her voice.
I'm scared. I just heard the gunshots. I don't know. I heard glass shattered of windows. Oh my God. Oh my God, I can't breathe.
The operator tried to keep her calm, tried to get information.
You spoken to your mom?
No, I don't know what she...
Girl, imagine being 19 years old, locked in your bedroom, knowing your mother is somewhere in that house, and you just heard gunshots. You don't know if she's alive. You don't know if she's dead. You don't know if the person who fired those shots is coming for you next. That's the position this young woman was in. Trapped, helpless, terrified. Samuel Vaia had come back to that house. The same house he was ordered to stay away from. The same woman he was told not to contact. And he came with a gun. One of the guns he didn't turn in. One of the guns the system just assumed he'd given up. Ashley didn't stand a chance. Sheriff Mike Chitwood would later say that Ashley was basically executed. Executed in her own home. While her daughter listened from down the hall, Samuel shot her and he left her there. By the time deputies arrived at the scene on Palmer Drive, Ashley Vaia was gone. 38 years old, mother of 3, dead. But Samuel? He was already on the move. Deputies knew immediately who they were looking for. This wasn't a mystery. The victim's daughter had heard the screaming and the shots. They knew Samuel Vaia was their guy, and they knew he was running. Law enforcement spotted Samuel's SUV on Interstate 95. He wasn't just driving, he was flying, over 100 miles per hour, weaving through traffic, running from what he'd just done. The chase went from Volusia County into Flagler County. Deputies were on his tail. A law enforcement helicopter was tracking him from the sky, cameras rolling, catching every moment. They deployed spike strips. You could see it from the chopper footage. Sparks flying as Samuel's tires hit those strips and shredded. But he kept going. The SUV was losing control, swerving, unstable. And then it happened. The vehicle went off the road and flipped, rolled completely over. The SUV came to a stop, wheels up, Samuel trapped inside. And that's when things got tense. Because Samuel wasn't coming out. He was inside that vehicle, and deputies had no idea what he was planning. Was he armed? Was he going to shoot at them? Was he hurt? The Flagler County SWAT team was called in. They surrounded the vehicle. This became a standoff. Minutes passed. They tried to communicate with him, but Samuel wasn't responding. Or maybe he couldn't respond. Eventually, the SWAT team made the decision. They had to get him out. They extricated him from the vehicle and turned him over to paramedics. That's when they saw it. Samuel Vaia had a gunshot wound to the head, self-inflicted. He'd shot himself. Paramedics worked on him, rushed him to an area hospital, but it was too late. Samuel Vaia died from that gunshot wound, the same way he'd killed Ashley, with a gun. But hey, at least he saved the state the cost of a trial, right? That's the only mercy in this whole situation, if you can even call it that. Now, let's back up for a second, because while all of this was unfolding, the murder, the chase, the crash, there's something that needs to be said. Ashley's neighbors had been concerned about Samuel for a while. One neighbor, who didn't want to be on camera, told reporters that Samuel had been shooting guns in his backyard before. Shooting guns in a residential neighborhood. She reported it to the authorities. Did anything happen? We don't know. Multiple neighbors said they were heartbroken over what happened. They'd seen Samuel around. Some had even talked to him, like Hector Colon did that Saturday. But nobody knew it would come to this. Nobody thought he'd actually do it. As the crime scene tape came down on Palmer Drive, reality started to sink in for everyone on that street. Something terrible had happened in that house. A mother was gone. 3 kids were left without her. And all of it, happened exactly 1 week after Samuel walked out of jail on a $2,000 bond. Sheriff Chitwood didn't hold back when he talked about this case. He was frustrated, he was angry, and honestly, he had every right to be. Domestic violence injunction is just this. A protection order is just this. It's a piece of paper. It's never going to keep any woman safe when somebody is hell-bent to kill you. And clearly, this guy was hell-bent on killing her. Let me tell you something. That quote right there. That's the truth nobody wants to hear. Protection orders are important. Filing reports is important. Calling the police is important. But when you're dealing with someone who has made up their mind to harm you, Sometimes none of that matters, and that's the terrifying part. Ashley's family was devastated. They were heartbroken, but they were also angry. One of Ashley's family members spoke to reporters and asked a question that a lot of people were asking. How was Samuel Vaia even able to make bail in the first place? $2,000 for a man who showed up at his ex-wife's house at 1 in the morning with a loaded gun. A man with a history of domestic violence. How did that happen? Sheriff Chitwood made it clear that his department had done everything they could. He said that in any domestic situation they're called to, if they find probable cause, they will make an arrest. They arrested Samuel on March 23rd. They found the gun. They charged him. They did their part. But the system let Ashley down. The bond was too low. The conditions weren't enforced. The follow-up on the guns never happened. And 1 week later, Ashley paid for those failures with her life.
Tonight, Greg, we're learning more about the man who Volusia County deputies say killed his ex-wife before turning the gun on himself. Samuel Vaia is accused of killing Ashley Vaia, then leading deputies on a high-speed chase through 2 counties. We brought you this as breaking news on Eyewitness News this morning. Channel 9's Scott Martin tells us how this wasn't his first run-in with the law.
She didn't want to go on camera, but she told me that Samuel Vaia had shot guns in his backyard before, so she reported it to the authorities. Now she and several other neighbors we talked to are just saddened by what happened on their street. As the crime scene tape came down on Parma Drive in Deltona, reality started sinking in that something terrible happened inside this home. Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood says 38-year-old Ashley Vaia was killed by her ex-husband, Samuel Vaia. The terrifying 911 call coming from her own daughter.
It was the victim's 19-year-old daughter on the phone saying that she had heard screaming, glass breaking, and gunshots.
Body camera video shows deputies getting to the home. Investigators knew Vaia was their guy. He was spotted going more than 100 miles an hour on I-95 before rolling over his SUV in Flagler County, all caught on camera from a law enforcement helicopter.
And then there's a standoff. He's inside of the vehicle. Flagler SWAT team is out there.
It was soon learned Vaia died from a self-inflicted gunshot. During the investigation, deputies also learned they arrested Vaia last week for a domestic situation involving a weapon. This is body camera video of that arrest.
Well, then I'm going to have you just put your hands behind your back, okay?
Online records show he posted a $2,000 bond. He was ordered to turn in all weapons on March 25th. He only turned in 3.
And then you fast forward, to the 31st, and here we have a mother of 3 who is basically executed.
Neighbors we talked to didn't want to go on camera. They said they're heartbroken for those involved, especially the kids. Sheriff Chitwood says Vaia was determined to kill his ex-wife.
Domestic violence injunction is just this. A protection order is just this. It's a piece of paper. It's never going to keep any woman safe when somebody is hell-bent to kill you. And clearly, this guy was hell-bent on killing her.
Sheriff Chitwood also added that any domestic situation that they are called out to, if they find probable cause, they will make an arrest. Reporting in Deltona, I'm Scott Martin, WFTV Tonight.
Now, normally this is where we talk about the arrest, the trial, the testimony, the verdict. But there was no trial. Samuel Vaia took that away when he put that gun to his own head. There would be no day in court, no jury, no chance for Ashley's family to face him and tell him what he took from them. No accountability, just death. The only arrest that mattered in this case already happened, March 23rd, when deputies took Samuel into custody at his father's house just a few doors down from Ashley's. That body camera footage, that moment when the deputy told him he had enough on him for domestic violence battery, that was it. That was the one time the system actually worked the way it was supposed to. They found probable cause. They made the arrest. They charged him. But then came the bond hearing. $2,000. That's all it took. Samuel paid it, walked out, and the countdown to Ashley's death began. The judge ordered him to turn in all his firearms, and stay away from Ashley. He turned in 3 guns, kept the rest. And as for staying away, well, we know how that turned out. There were supposed to be safeguards. There were supposed to be checks. But nobody verified that Samuel had actually complied with the court's orders. Nobody made sure he'd turned in every weapon. Nobody checked to see if he was staying away from Ashley. And the protection order. Girl Sheriff Chitwood said it best. It was just a piece of paper. Ashley's family wanted answers. They wanted to know how this happened. How a man with a history of domestic violence, who showed up at his ex-wife's house at 1 a.m. with a loaded gun, was able to post a $2,000 bond and walk free. They wanted to know why the system that was supposed to protect Ashley failed her so completely. Those are fair questions. Questions that a lot of families ask when they lose someone to domestic violence. Questions that don't always get answered. Ashley Vaia leaves behind 3 children. 3 kids who will grow up without their mother. Her 19-year-old daughter will carry the sound of those gunshots with her for the rest of her life. That's the legacy Samuel left them. Trauma, loss, a hole that can never be filled. This case isn't unique. That's the sad part. Dr. J.T. Lacey said it. Approximately 1 in 3 female homicide victims are killed by intimate partners. This happens every single day in this country. Women leave abusive relationships. They file protection orders. They call the police. They do everything they're told to do. And sometimes it still isn't enough. Because here's the reality. When someone is determined to hurt you, when they've made up their mind that if they can't have you, nobody can, a piece of paper isn't going to stop them. A bond hearing isn't going to stop them. Even an arrest might not stop them. The system can only do so much. And in Ashley's case, it wasn't enough. Sheriff Chitwood said his department exhausted all their resources. They arrested Samuel. They charged him. They did what they could. But at the end of the day, Samuel was released, and Ashley paid the price. The sheriff was disappointed, frustrated, and he had every right to be. So what do we learn from this? What's the takeaway? First, we need to take domestic violence more seriously. A man showing up at his ex-wife's house at 1 a.m. with a gun isn't a misunderstanding. It's not a lover's quarrel. It's a warning sign, a bright red flag, and the response needs to match the threat. A $2,000 bond doesn't match the threat. Second, we need to follow through. If a judge orders someone to turn in all their firearms, someone needs to verify that actually happened. Not just take their word for it. Verify. Check. Make sure, because lives depend on it. Third, we need to support survivors. We need to believe them when they say they're scared. We need to give them resources. We need to make sure they're not navigating this alone. Ashley did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. That's not on her. That's on a system that failed to protect her. And finally, we need to recognize the most dangerous time, post-separation, post-divorce. That's when the risk is highest. That's when women need the most protection. That's when we can't afford to drop the ball. Ashley's story is over, but her children's story continues. They have to live with what happened. They have to find a way to move forward without their mother. And they have to do it knowing that the system that was supposed to keep her safe let her down. This is 12 a.m. crime. This is what happens when protection orders fail, when bonds are too low, when follow-through doesn't happen, when someone is hell-bent on violence and nothing stands in their way. Ashley Vaia was 38 years old. She was a mother of 3. She tried to protect herself. She used the system. She filed the reports. She got the protection order. And on March 31st, exactly 1 week after her ex-husband walked out of jail, She was murdered in her own home. Remember her name. Remember her story. And remember that domestic violence doesn't end when the relationship ends. Sometimes that's when it gets deadly. Period.